Welcome to the North Carolina Field Ministers Podcast, Changing Life, Changing Culture. This podcast offers a forum for field ministers in North Carolina to discuss their lives, their ministry, their impact on incarcerated neighbors, their viewpoints on issues that affect the currently and formerly incarcerated, and their perspectives on a variety of topics. Please note, the podcast does not officially represent the North Carolina Field Minister Program.
During 20 years in prison, I have witnessed many clashes. One collision transcended the others in my memory. The two groups stared at each other across the gym. The challenger sized up their rivals. They stepped to the starting line and leaned forward. Their back legs thumped, and their hands clenched. When the signal blared, they charged, crashing into each other mid-court. The two sides embraced, hugging, kissing, and crying in joyful reunion. The neon green uniformed groups were not opposing teams. One group consisted of incarcerated fathers. Their children formed the other group. No longer separated by security fences, prison walls, or a gym floor, the fathers and children held on to each other like a moment of non-contact.
This call is from a North Carolina Correctional facility.
Like a moment of non-contact would make their loved one disappear. This scene started the main events of the One Day with God camp at Nash Correctional Institution in Nashville, North Carolina. On Saturday, March 23rd, 2024, this program gave 15 incarcerated fathers and their children a day to create special memories and foster deep connection. Serving at the event gave me one of the best experiences of my life. Scotty Barnes, the founder of program sponsor Forgiven Ministries, created the One Day with God camps to care for the needs of children with incarcerated parents. She calls these children the silent victims of mass incarceration. Miss Scotty, as she is often called, knows their pain because her father spent most of her life in prison. He missed key events like her graduation and her wedding day. She wants to restore relationships between these fathers and their children to first break the cycle of incarceration, then facilitate life success for children and reentry. Success for the fathers. Children of incarcerated fathers are more likely to display behavior disorders, more likely to drop out of high school, and more likely to go to prison. Strong relationships decrease these odds and increase their chances for success. These relationships also compel the fathers to continue on the rehabilitation path. For the dads, the camp began on Friday with the fatherhood workshop and other preparation. At 8 a.m., camp coordinator Bob Calhoun welcomed the dads. Camp dads sat with volunteer dads at tables covered with forest green plastic tablecloths. The inside and outside dads got to know each other while eating a breakfast of McDonald's biscuits, Nature Valley granola bars, and coffee. The food and coffee lubricated the conversation for the incarcerated dads, who normally hesitate to trust outsiders. After breakfast, Calhoun, a retired high school teacher, explained why he and the other volunteers were there. He said, "We're here to give you hope." And he called hope the best thing you can have. Next, each dad introduced himself by name, by number of children and their ages, and by their kids' interests or accomplishments. Every dad shared their kids' interests or accomplishments with a raw, vulnerable tone rarely heard in prison. Interests range from sports and dance to marine biology, from video games to cosmetology. One dad boasted that his 10-year-old son always qualifies for his school's good behavior party, and his 9-year-old son just aced the American Colonies test. The dad of a 14-year-old praised his daughter for winning track events. Another dad commented, "My daughter loves technology and gymnastics, and she is 6 going on 36. The dad then spent several hours engaged in the fatherhood workshop titled Godly Dads, Men of Integrity, Love, and Leadership. The workshop and companion workbook included talks by volunteers, videos, reflection writing, and discussions between the incarcerated and volunteer dads. One volunteer read from the workbook, saying, "Our children will remember our example more than our words." He repeated the message, pausing to look each dad in the eye, emphasizing the importance of integrity. To illustrate the point, he played the video of Watching You by Rodney Atkins. The country song tells the story of a little boy who is learning how to live by watching his father. The son learns how to cuss and how to pray. The father learns to live, always mindful his son is watching. The camp father seemed to gaze beyond the video on the screen. I think they were reflecting on the good and bad lessons they had displayed and envisioning how they want to live so their children will be successful when emulating them. After the video, a volunteer asked the dads to share about good moments they shared with their dads as a child. One shared about his love for G.I. Joes. The G.I. Joes weren't just his favorite toys, they were his heroes. His dad was often absent because of his job. The G.I. Joe fan said he went to an air show and was mesmerized by the soldiers. Then he heard his dad's name announced. He looked up to see his dad jump from a helicopter, fully equipped in combat gear. His dad was a real-life G.I. Joe. His dad was his true hero. Now he wants to be a hero to his son. Another camper reflected on learning to work on cars and motorcycles from his dad. He said his dad would patiently guide him through each step, telling him which tool to use and what to do with it. Now he uses the same deliberation to teach his teenage sons how to practice for wrestling and how to read the Bible. The workshop took a break for lunch. Volunteers served fried chicken, green beans, potatoes, hush puppies, and banana pudding, all catered by local country cooking legend Doug Sauls. The fathers attacked the fried chicken and banana pudding with a ferocity only the deprived can exhibit. The forks and spoons slowed gradually as their fullness caught their appetites. A confession? I ate 5 pieces of fried chicken and 5 bowls of banana pudding. In my defense, I waited until the dads had eaten all they wanted. Even on the 5th serving, every spoonful of banana pudding made me shoulder shimmy and dance in my seat. It was just that good. After lunch, a speaker captured the full attention of all participants. In fact, he received almost as much attention as the food. The speaker, Joey...
This call is from a North Carolina correctional facility.
The speaker, Joey Davidson, carried weight with listeners because he spoke as one of them. Davidson served 20 years in prison in California. He has been out of prison for 8 years. He demonstrated his unity with a simple but resonating gesture. He shared a picture of his wife and daughter, noting staff never did this during his time in prison. The message was clear. I am one of you, so I know how you feel and I care about you. He told his colleagues about his journey from a juvenile sentenced to life to a free man with a family. The story provided the perfect antidote to the normal post-lunch drowsiness. Pointing to the picture of his family, he declared, "This is my hope for every man here. I want you to get out of here and have pictures, experiences, and memories with your family." Following Davidson's talk, Calhoun returned to introduce a feature from ABC's Nightline about the One Day with God program titled Face to Face. The feature followed the One Day with God team into prison to show the impact on the children. Like any skilled storyteller, the close-up focused on the emotional moments. Standing at the back of the gym, I could not see the fathers' faces. But when the video made tears tumble down my cheeks, I looked at the other field ministers serving at the camp. All 5 were in tears. Same for the reporter from the prison newspaper, the Nash News. 7 prisoners standing side by side, not one dry eye. The dad spent the rest of the day preparing gifts for their kids. Each dad decorated a picture frame, selected from a vast assortment of stick-on letters and ornaments in an array of colors. A girl dad decorated his daughter's frame in pinks and purples, carefully sticking on the letters of her name, and flowers, stars, a moon, and a unicorn. The dad of 2 boys did one in red and the other in blue for their favorite colors. Each dad wrote a personal message of love on the back of the frame. Then each dad grabbed a green nylon bag with a black tie string and stuffed it full of gifts. Basketballs, matchbox cars, dolls, coloring books with crayons, sidewalk chalk, paint sets. Each bag also received a quilt made by a prisoner. Candidly, I wanted to play with that sidewalk chalk. It could have brightened the drabness of prison. Maybe next time. With the preparations complete, The dads left for the day. I wonder how many of them slept that night. Probably not many. The dads returned to the gym Saturday morning at 7:30 a.m. We served them a breakfast of Otis Spunkmeyer muffins, granola bars, and Welch's juice, plus coffee. Some barely nibbled, their appetite smothered by thoughts of a day with their kids. After breakfast, Scotty Barnes told the story of how the program started. More than 20 years ago, she felt called to serve God by serving prisoners and their children. She told God she had one condition: no planes. God must have laughed, because a month later she flew to the Philippines. While there, she was taken to Trash City, where a boy named Ezekiel asked her to pray that he would get to hear his father, who he had not seen in years, tell him, "I love you." She prayed with the boy, but wondered how such a prayer could be answered. The next day, she visited a Philippine prison. Walking through one section, a prisoner hollered and hollered, begging her to come to his cell and talk to him. When she walked to his cell, he asked her to go to Trash City to find his son and tell the son his father loves him. She asked the son's name. His name? Yeah, you already know, Ezekiel. She not only found Ezekiel to deliver the message, she took the boy to visit his father. One Day with God was born. The first camp was held in North Carolina, and it spread to 7 other states, with thousands of volunteers across the nation donated time and money. When Miss Scotty finished the story, the fathers pulled on their uniforms for the day. Neon green t-shirts with One Day with God logos on the front and back. For some, it was their first time wearing clothes other than prison issued in more than a decade. A half hour later, the kids arrived wearing the same bright green shirts. One at a time, each father's name was called. At that signal, the father and his kid or kids sprinted to mid-court, where they collided with hugs and kisses, laughter and tears. One of my field minister duties is teaching a rehabilitation class titled Thinking for a Change. Several of the fathers took the class. One of those dads told me a few days before the camp that he had not seen his daughter in 10 years. They talked often by phone, but he had not seen or hugged her in a decade, since she was 4 years old. Knowing that detail made watching their mid-court reunion especially meaningful. Once united at mid-court, the green shirt dads and kids were encircled by dozens of blue shirt volunteers. Most of the volunteers came from local churches or other prison ministry organizations. 3 of the volunteers traveled from Michigan, where they volunteer in prisons there. One of the dads prayed for the participants in the day. Then, to create a fun atmosphere, volunteers led several team games. 4 teams of dads and kids competed. First in a relay race to pick up balls from center court. Then in a race to put the balls back in the basket. Dads cheered for their kids, and kids cheered for their dads. From the sidelines, volunteers cheered for all of them. Next, each team formed a line. A volunteer instructed them to pass the balloon from the front to the back of the line. The last person had to sit on the balloon to pop it. First, the balloon passing race required passing it under each person's legs. An 8-year-old girl at the back of one line had a hard time popping the balloon. She tried sitting on it, but she just bounced to the side. She tried again. The red balloon escaped behind her. She scowled at the balloon, then clutched it and jumped on it with her knees. A loud pop led to her high-pitched scream. Arms raised, she ran into her dad's arms for a victory hug. Her team finished last in the race, but she won because she got to celebrate with her dad. Other balloon races require passing overhead, under, over, with the person at the back switching each time. Cheers followed each pop. High fives and hugs accompanied the cheers. After the games, the dads and kids sat in a big group on the court to watch a professional juggler. The juggler tossed and caught balls in bowling pins while telling stories and jokes. He said, "I usually juggle machetes, but didn't think that was a good idea given the location." He recruited help from his audience. One dad helped the juggler climb a 6-foot unicycle. A kid tossed balls to him. The juggler appeared to lose control of the unicycle, but caught himself in the balls just before crashing into the audience. The juggler smirked, said, I had control the whole time. When the juggler finished, the blue shirt crew served lunch. Actually, before serving lunch, 2 huge sheet cakes, one vanilla and the other chocolate, were wheeled out. A volunteer announced, "Today we celebrate everyone's birthday from the past year." Then he led the crowd in singing "Happy Birthday to You." Then the Love Train song played, and blue shirt volunteers persuaded the green shirt campers to join their Congo line style love train to take them to their tables for lunch. Lunch was Little Caesar's pizza with birthday cake for dessert. Another confession? I ate 7 slices of pizza and 4 slices of cake loaded with icing. The sheet cake continued a theme for me by reminding me of my dad. That Friday marked 2 years since my dad's death. He was a wonderful father. The godly father, the one day with God workshop holds his ideal. He was a machine operator in a plant for more than 50 years. Every month, his plant had sheet cake to celebrate that month's birthdays. He always brought 2 pieces home, one for me and one for my brother. To me, sheet cake tastes sweeter than the sugar. It tastes like love. It tastes like my dad's love. During lunch, a professional photographer set up a camera, lighting, and background to take pictures of each family. The kids received a picture for their personalized frame, decorated for them by their dad the day before. The dads received a keepsake to motivate them daily as they strive to be the fathers their kids need. Craft time followed lunch and photo time. Together, the dads and kids constructed a small lamp decorated with beads, another memory keepsake for the kids to take home. One kid boasted, "This is my 5th lamp, and each one is special." Once the lamps were completed, Bob Calhoun led dancing for the dads and kids and volunteers. Even prison staff wearing yellow One Day with God t-shirts joined the dance. The first selection was Cupid Shuffle, followed by My Father's House. Fueled by cake, icing, sugar, kids danced, twirled, and jumped. Fueled by love, their dads defied the prison cultural norm of acting tough and cool by dancing, twirling, and jumping right with their kids. Sugar and love made for a splendid dance floor mix. After the dancing burned off some of the sugar, a performer from Dribble Ministry entertained the crowd. She dribbled multiple basketballs, then spun several at a time. She even challenged 2 dads and 2 kids to mimic her. One 9-year-old boy showed his talent by keeping up for a while. One of the dads did well, but couldn't keep up when tasked with dribbling multiple basketballs. So he changed the game and started juggling 3 basketballs. The crowd responded with laughs and cheers. Next, the Dribble Ministry team organized the dad versus kids basketball game, which was intended to be a 5-on-5 contest. But after the teams were selected, a 6-year-old girl decided to join the kids team. Other than the +1 girl, the kids were teenagers. They took an early lead on their dads, but the dads had a big size advantage, an advantage that helped them win. All of the spectators cheered for the kids. I think the dads were okay with that. The Dribble Ministry performer finished by telling the dads, "Dads, you are the guardians of your kids' dreams. It's your job to protect their dreams. Submit yourselves so you can fulfill your purpose and be there for your kids." On that purpose-filled note, the dads and kids got by themselves to work through a book, Sowing Seeds of Connection, Cultivating the Parent-to-Child Relationship Workbook. Justin Danforth created this book while incarcerated to build a relationship with his daughter. He noticed that she wouldn't write back when he wrote letters, but if he sent these activities, she would eagerly do them, and they got to know each other really well like that. The workbook contains numerous favorite lists and questions to get kids to reveal their interests and dreams, including 3 wishes, what I want to be when I grow up, greatest gifts, where I would go if I could travel anywhere, if I ruled the world, and favorite activities. The workbook and discussion time helped the dads discover their kids and develop intimacy. Next came a daddy-daughter dance for the girl dads and their daughters. Each dad asked his daughter to dance and gave her a plastic rose. 2 dads picked their small daughters up and just held them close in their arms for the dance. Then came a father-son walk. The fathers and sons walked around the court with their arms around each other's shoulders. Some talked while walking. Others just enjoyed being close. After those two sentimental activities, dads gave their kids the big bag of gifts they had packed for them. Several boys grabbed their new basketball and ran to the court, eager to play with their new gift. One girl pleaded with her dad to open the doll package so she could play with it. Several kids were more interested in their dads than the gifts. Old enough to understand they could take the gifts with them, but they would have to leave their dads. Before walking outside for the send-off, the crowd gathered. Calhoun invited each of them to share what the day meant to them. The first to grab the mic was a girl who said, "Today means I get to be with my dad." My dad was next, saying, "I didn't know if I would ever get to hold my kids again." His tears kept him from saying more, so he passed the mic over to his two sons and daughter. "I love y'all, and I'm proud of y'all." A boy boasted, "My dad is the best dad, and I love him very much." Cultivating these feelings of love and appreciation of kids for their dads is exactly what Scotty Barnes intended when she created Forgiven Ministries and the One Day with God camp. She knows the kids need to feel love. Feeling loved increases their chance to break the cycle of incarceration and gives them a foundation to build on for making good life decisions. My field minister team was privileged to serve by doing the grunt work. We moved tables and chairs, packed and unpacked supplies and food, distributed items, and cleaned up countless spills. We smiled the entire time, happy to be a small part of a massively important event. Helping with the One Day with God camp was one of the best experiences of my life. Lots of incarcerated fathers talk about their kids, but getting to see the dads really be dads for a day was extraordinary.
You have been listening to the Prison Pod, a podcast not just for those in prison but for anyone who has been affected by incarceration. Ms. Valerie would love for you to write to her with your questions, comments, and show ideas. The address is Prison Pod, Post Office Box 294, Orono, Maine. 04473.